Hello, welcome back to our series, Behind the Scenes of Nautilus. I'm Commander Brad Boyd, Director, Submarine Force Museum, and Officer in Charge, Historic Ship Nautilus. This episode, we're going into cruise mess. Now, I had one question from the previous episode in radio, so we're going to answer that one, and then we'll go into cruise mess. If you have any questions about this episode or any previous ones, please let us know. We'll do our best to answer. With that, on with the tour. Alright, so as I said, start off with radio. Now, there was one question in here, and that was some of the equipment doesn't seem to make sense as you look at it. So some of the pairs of equipment here don't line up with what you would expect. That's because when Nautilus was converted, if anything was sensitive, they pulled it off as part of the demilitarization, declassification of this space. And then anything that was needed by another ship was taken as well. So there is a lot of equipment that probably would have been in here that is not, and they probably put back some equipment to fill the space out a little bit, but stuff that was completely demilled, no longer classified, and therefore may not make sense with the rest of the equipment that was in there. So that's why this does not completely make sense if you know exactly what you're looking for the equipment that's supposed to be in radio and what equipment pairs with what. But that's what's going on. So sorry that it's not 100% accurate, but that's why part of the decommissioning and demilitarization, declassification process. For example, you can see there's equipment missing down there. There's Amphenol connections down there. Amphenol is just a type of connection. That's that plug that you see right here. So that's an Amphenol connection. But that's why. So apologize for that. But with that, we're going to go on to cruise mess, and so as we head into cruise mess here. So cruise mess is obviously where the crew ate, and it would be E1 through E6. So seaman recruit all the way up through first class petty officer would eat in cruise mess. Chiefs would eat in Chief's quarters, which we'll go into this in another episode. That'd be E7 and above, and then officers ate in the wardroom. But this is cruise mess, so E1 through E6. Now you got to remember, some of the tables have been taken out, so the plexiglass wall didn't exist here. This railing here didn't exist. I'll cover that in a second. And so that table, you see how there's two tables there, and only one here. There'd have been actually two tables all the way down here. So there'd have been a total of 6 tables in here, 3 small and 3 big tables. Now they would eat in here. They would also do training. They do relaxation. All that type of stuff had happened in cruise mess. So this sailor here is eating a cheeseburger with some chocolate chip cookies. So this is probably a post field day, which is the Navy term for basically a deep cleaning of the ship, or at least a space. And so the reward for field day is typically cheeseburgers and chocolate chip cookies, at least on all the boats I've ever been on. That's usually the meal they serve after a field day, which is usually every Friday. Nautilus, by the way, was not the first submarine to have an ice cream machine. However, they like to brag they were the first submarine to always have an ice cream machine. So when you're in a diesel boat and you go underwater, you lose your diesel engines, you got to shift to the battery, and so you secure all non-essential loads, and ice cream is deemed as non-essential, I'm sorry to say. However, on Nautilus, when you go underwater, you're still in nuclear power, you have all the power you want, and so therefore they got to keep the ice cream machine up pretty much 24/7, except it would be taken down for daily cleaning and all that type of stuff they'd have to do. But otherwise, they had ice cream available. So you'd also do training on cruise mess. You'd do some maintenance on cruise mess if it was, administrative type work, or let's say you had to inventory a DC field kit. So damage control, not field kit, toolkit. So that's what this is right here. So this is a damage control toolkit. Not so much used in fires, but more in things like flooding. You have pry bar, you have screwdrivers, you have wrenches, hatchet for dealing with wood if you have to do some shoring up of an area. And then you have what you would use to band a pipe together, or hold a pipe together. So you have pipe patches, So this will be placed over the pipe, and you have varying diameters. So these are both the same, but you'd have varying sizes to go around, different size pipes, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch pipe, you name it. And then you have Bandit, which is right here, same as you can find out in town, steel Bandit. And then you have a Bandit tool right here, same as you can find out in town. We paint ours red for identifying that it's to be used with the damage control toolkit, but that's really the only difference. And what you would do is you would slide the pipe, or the patch over the pipe, and so let's say that the actual damage to the pipe is right here. You would put the patch there. You put the Bandit on 2 spots above and below, and then you'd slide it down over the water stream, and then you tighten it using that Bandit kit to get the patch to hold, and that way, and then you tighten it down with that. You put a clamp on, one of those clamps over there, and then that holds that patch in place. And that's how damage control would work on a leaking pipe, assuming it's not leaking from a joint, just a crack in the pipe or something. You would also have things like this, so you have blocks you can pound into place for the bigger pipes if you can't get a patch around it. You have Marlin, so if it's a lower pressure water system that's leaking, then you could use Marlin. So Marline. So this is twine that has been tarred, and when it gets wet, it expands. And so you do about a double layer wrap on it, and then you actually have a little piece of wood, just a stick, about twice as thick as a standard number 2 pencil, and you use that, and you loop the twine in it, and then you twist the wood, and that helps tighten the tine up. And you end up tying it, and you just leave the wood attached to it, and that Marline just sits there. So that's damage control kit. Once again, you don't really do maintenance on a cruise mess, but you could do inventories and stuff like that. So, all right. So going over here, you also have next stop. We have lay services. So a submarine and pretty much all warships in general don't have the room or the billeting for a full-on Navy chaplain. That's an officer, commissioned officer, who has been ordained in their respective ministry. So it could be or respective faith. So it could be a cleric, it could be a rabbi, it could be a priest. You name it. And then every denomination within all the Christianities or within Islam or Judaism too, for that matter, just all the different versions that can be. But they will, if you have one in the Navy, so let's say I have a Jewish rabbi, he would also provide services for, he may not do the actual service, but provide services for all branches or all the denominations, all religions, as part of his duties. But on a submarine or on a warship, for the most part, we don't have room for them, so we have what we call our lay leaders. Now, a lay leader is a volunteer, and they will volunteer to run a service for their specific denomination. Typically, you have a Catholic lay leader and a Protestant lay leader. That's just based off the percentages of what makes up the submarine crews in the past. So, but you can also, we've had Jewish lay leaders. I've heard of Islamic lay leaders, and I've even heard of a Wiccan lay leader. So if you are a member of that religion or practice that religion, and you want to be the lay leader, no one gets forced to do it, then you can volunteer to do so. And they'll lead services, and the crew will provide the ship will provide space, usually cruise mess and the wardroom, and time to let you perform worship. Typically Sundays, at least for Christianity. The Jewish, if they wanted to hold services on Saturday, that would be accommodated. Those types of things. That's the lay leader, and that's why that is set up here. Go back a little bit. So first off, projector. So the screen would be set up at the front of cruise mess. It's been taken down right now, but it's a removable screen. But the screen would be the front, projector in the back. This is pretty much all Nautilus would have had her entire time in service. Would be a film. She's commissioned in 54, decommissioned in 80. Last time she probably would have shown movies on deck, would probably been in late 79, early 80. So she was probably filmed the entire time. I have no indication that she ever had anything other than a projector. It's possible towards the very end she may have had something. But as far as we know, it was just film. And then behind that film, you see circuit breaker panels. So those are DC, direct current breaker panels. And that is because that right there is the battery. So when we were standing there, those metal rails weren't there, and it would have just been a hatch, very much like that one, so that you can walk on the hatch. So that hatch would have been there, and that would have been all that separated the battery from up above, and then batteries work in direct current as opposed to alternating current, which is your wall outlets. So the direct current circuit breakers in the back would have tied into the battery, and that feeds power to either equipment that run on direct current or to motor generators that can then alternate that power back to alternating current, and so that can be used to power alternating current devices. That's how you have alternating current generated by your diesel generator or your turbines. You have direct current generated by the battery or stored by the battery and then released. And then you have the ability to transfer either AC to DC or DC to AC and utilize that power. So that way the battery provides an immediate source of electric backup if needed. Okay, back over here. So we'll talk about the mask in a second, but you see the microscope and you see the tool that obviously for a doctor. This is Nautilus, as we talked about in one of the previous episodes, had a full medical doctor on staff. He would not have had an office up here. His office was actually back aft in the engine room. We can't go back there, but back aft in the engine room in one of the crew areas is where the sick bay was. And so that's where his office was. But we have it up here to discuss that they did have a doctor, and we do still continue to have medical services available on board submarines. All right, so the masks. Right here, so we talked about it in the Operation Sunshine episode that they didn't have this mask here, the EBA, or excuse me, EAB, emergency air breathing mask. We'll talk about that in a second. Nor did they even have the OBA, the oxygen breathing apparatus. They had a smoke hood, which was basically filtered the smoke out. The Navy had some OBAs and eventually got them on board. So the OBA, oxygen breathing apparatus, is a rebreather. And so you have that mask there, and it's got the canister in the front and the two bladders, or lungs, if you will, on the side, and the mask to the face. So here's the same thing. The way this works is you stick the canister, and it's a canister of potassium superoxide, goes into here. That potassium superoxide actually reacts with carbon dioxide. So when you breathe out carbon dioxide into the canister, it then reacts to create oxygen. So it filters your carbon dioxide out and gives you oxygen back. And that's how this entire system works. So that's why you're rebreathing your own air with carbon dioxide coming out and oxygen being reintroduced. It gets very hot, so it's why this is real thick leather. And it goes to these lungs where it actually gets cool, so you breathe cool air even though you've got hundreds of degrees inside the canister, because that's what's required for that chemical reaction to occur. So that's the oxygen breathing apparatus. Benefit to this is you can breathe in any environment. You're not dependent upon anything from the outside. You just walk around, and it will last about 60 minutes, give or take, depending on how heavy you're breathing. So 60 minutes normal operation. If you're in the middle of fighting a fire, you're breathing heavy, you're nervous, you're sweating, whatever, it may go a little bit faster as you breathe more, but 60 minutes is the rule for this one. And then it gives you an indication about 15 when you have about 15 minutes of air left that it's time to get out of the space. Go swap your canister out. So that's the oxygen breathing apparatus. Works great, except it's bulky, and you have to store all the canisters on board to provide oxygen, and when you're out, you're done. Enter the EAB. So we talked about the fact that Nautilus realized that with the smoke hoods only, even if they only had OBAs, they never had enough for everybody. They had to come up with a way for the entire crew to breathe for an extended period of time in an oxygen-denied environment, either due to smoke-filled or toxic gas, or just they can't get oxygen, the oxygen generator, the oxygen banks are depleted, or what have you. So they came up with this system that ties into the ship's high-pressure air banks. So this mask goes down to, that regulator right there. So that regulator is about a 20-pound regulator, so that way you're breathing 20-pound air, much better for your lungs than the high-pressure air it's attached to. That hose comes up to this manifold here, and this manifold is 100-pound air here. So not super high-pressure air, because that's about, the air banks are about 3,500 to 4,000 pounds. But you still don't want to breathe 100-pound air. That'd be bad for your lungs. So you have a reducer that sits further upstream that sends air to this pipe at about 100 pounds. And then from here, you have 100-pound air going to that regulator, which reduces it to 20 pounds. And because you have 100-pound air being reduced to 20 pounds, you can actually fit about 4 to 5 people off of one person. So we call it daisy chaining. So he's got his regulator back there, and there's actually an adapter on it that you could plug this into that adapter. So you could actually have multiple people tied into one spot. The Navy liked the idea so much that Nautilus came up with that even though when Nautilus had installed it was PVC pipe and garden hose, they came back and decided that let's go with a metal one. They retrofitted every submarine in the fleet, and to this day we still use this exact same system. There's been a couple of modifications, so over the time we've realized that 2 banks of about 15 manifolds is not right for cruise mess. So in spaces we don't just have one long row, we'll have 4 or 5 over there, 4 or 5 there, or 4 or 5 there. Just spread the wealth throughout the space, if you will. So you don't have just lines crossing everywhere in the middle. You can kind of get off to the side and not trip over each other. And then with Virginia class, we realized that, hey, putting them in the overhead while it gets it out of the way may not be the best idea in a fire because heat rises. And so you're trying to reach up into a hot environment to connect. So they actually put it down about an ankle to knee height for the Virginia class submarines. So those are the changes to the EAB, emergency air breathing system. Okay, so this was Cruise Mess. Next episode, we're actually going to go into storeroom, identical one over Chief's quarters, and into the battery. So we have some maintenance going on that's going to let me go into there. Normally, I can't go into those spaces. I can't just open the hatch and go in. I'll open this one real fast to show you, but it's not exactly a ventilated space down in there. And so we'll go in there and we're going to have temporary ventilation set up and have somebody come by and verify atmospheres are good, just as you would with any environment like this. It's pretty much OSHA standards for an enclosed environment. When Nautilus is underway, there was ventilation down there. You can kind of see that little grate there. However, when we converted her, the ventilation system was changed and we can't just go in there now. So we're doing maintenance that's going to have us into those 3 sections. And so I had that opportunity to take you in. So we're going to do that, and I apologize. We're going to skip Chief's quarters for a minute. We'll do that in a following episode. But based off the maintenance I have, that's what we're going to do. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed the tour, and look forward to seeing you next episode. Thanks. Bye.